ops, even if they don't report it. At a support meeting, I mentioned my research and had assumed the group did not have many experiences, but found that I was wrong. After sharing, I noticed that more than half of the group of 20 people present were nodding their heads in the affirmative and making facial expressions, clearly implying that they had had the experience similar to those I was describing. I was surprised by their reactions. Additionally, the therapist who led this group was unaware, this is very important, was unaware of the possible covert ops experiences amongst their own cases. And while attending a support group at a conference where various attendees shared their abduction experience, I noticed some of these individuals were including covert ops activities with their accounts. Struck by the number of people who were describing such events, I asked the group to raise their hands if they knew they had military involvement, and 8 people did so. There were 30 people present, and I was surprised that 8 out of 30 in a group. It's important to note that these groups were completely random sampling of abductees who had experienced various forms of ET abduction and who were different levels of acceptance of their ET experience. In other words, they were all coming at it from a different level, from a different amount of knowledge, yet 8 out of 30. I can't help but realize how surprised many abduction researchers, not to mention general ufologists, would have been by the number of responses. That these random samplings represent a statistically bigger picture of covert ops experiences. In the second group, a total of 8 out of 30 abductees may have had involvement. Of course, these numbers have staggering implications. Additionally, covert ops abductees feel covert ops experiencers feel that other ET abduction experiencers won't, and the researchers won't understand the difficulty of living with these particularly unique experiences. For example, covert ops cases regularly express that their ET experiences are never as bad as their covert ones. As expressed by one of my cases, but out of all my experiences with varying alien beings, no experience has made me more angry than those that have involved the military. And another one said, the aliens are never as bad as the military are always worse. I actually hear this consistently. Some of my cases have even asked the ETs for help or feel they've received help from the ETs in stopping their covert experiences. Now, I want to clarify that this isn't really the military, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more. But initially, I just want to say, I'm calling it covert ops because, to me, it puts such a negative emphasis on a military participation, when often these are guys in lab coats that are seen, guys in suits, threats and warnings by guys in civilian clothes. I cannot say it's all the military. There seems to be a huge amount of intelligence community involvement also in this. If abductions are real and happening anywhere near the scale suggested by the abduction researchers, and therefore more likely a matter of national security, or because of perception similar to that of Dr. David Jacobs with his threat theory, then of course the intelligence community would be interested in the abductees. These may be covert intelligence agencies and not the military, or at least a black world aspect of the military. I'm not slamming the military. I'm not going to read this whole thing here, but Helmut Lammer says we just have a right to know what goes on in special access programs, which is where he believes this is all being handled, again, in black ops. Before I move forward, I want to be very clear, very, very clear, that my research data does not in any way point to a military in lieu of abduction, in lieu of ET abduction thesis. That quite the contrary, there's a military and intelligence community involvement because of ET abduction experiences. Covert ops involvement exists because the ET abductions are absolutely real. And this is the only reason these agencies have any interest whatsoever in the abductees. And their interest in abductees is predominantly in what they know regarding ET motives and what they know about ET technology. Now, I want to talk about this real quick because you're going to hear Niara later, and she's one of my cases of what I call military on military involvement. Now, here I just said, I gave all this explanation and, disclaimer, oh, it's not really the military doing this. It's not the military except for when it is. And military on military cases are alien abductees who joined the military. Okay, 136 million possible alien abductees on the planet today, and that's the conservative number, pretty much suggests that a fair amount of those are going to be people in the military. Well, what happens then is some of these abductees, when they're in the military, then have this covert ops experience where they can be re-abducted, harassment, surveillance, by the military while in the military. And you're going to hear a very amazing detailed case when you hear from Niara. Here's just some examples, some of the people that I'm familiar with who are military on military cases. Obviously, Niara had 3 months of missing time. Bruce Coe, 3 weeks of missing time, used in ET communication. Ray Muniz, a gentleman I'm working with now that has 2 years of seamless missing time, was used in a variety of ET communication experiences during that period. Dan Sherman, very well known, wrote a book called Above Black, used consciously in communication role. Larry Warren, who's here with us, and who shared much more of his experience with me and a small group of people the other night. He's going to talk about it a little bit more Saturday, I hope, Larry, wherever you are. and definitely you want to hear Larry Saturday morning. So everybody get to bed early Friday. You won't want to miss that. John Vasquez, Vance Davis, a gentleman Andrew, James Bartley, an unnamed female, and a new case of mine. Her name is Allison, and her family. Her family was in the military, moved all over to different bases all over the world, and had these covert-ops re-abductions from a variety of these bases, and her father was a high-ranking military official. Who all are doing this? Well, covert-ops experiences happen internationally. International cases often involve military and/or intelligence personnel from the country where the experience is occurring. They involve U.S. military and U.S. agents, U.S. and foreign subcontractors, and foreign military or foreign agents. Often, U.S. personnel are seen in conjunction with the foreign personnel. So, and of course, this has happened to some abductees while traveling. Someone travels to France, has a military experience there. They're a U.S. abductee, if you will, and yet they have the military experience. They may experience French military and U.S. military together, just as an example. And then, of course, the majority of the numbers I'm about to give you are people who are from that country. So their country of origin is where they're having this happen. This is just what I'm currently aware of as of about 2 weeks ago, and this number is increasing all the time. But 19 cases in the UK, 4 in France, 3 in Germany, 4 in Italy, some in Iran. The Iranian cases, interestingly, happened with U.S. military and U.S. subcontractors. Indonesia, Australia, Peru, Puerto Rico, China, Russia, Munich, West Germany, India, 9 in Canada, and 9 in Mexico. These are just the cases I'm currently aware of. It's growing all the time. So if you're an international case, I'm particularly interested in hearing about your experience. So what happens to the abductees? So like, what the heck are you talking about, Melinda? What do you mean? What's going on? Well, they're being watched and being followed and have their home or workplace under surveillance. Black helicopter surveillance and harassment, threats made to the abductee, their family, and friends, phone interruptions, and harassing, intimidating, or even threatening phone calls, email and snail mail tampering, and computer hacking, in-person direct face-to-face confrontations and warnings, and MIB, Men in Black, experiences, illegal break-ins to property, homes, and vehicles, underground bases visited and advanced technology seen, abductions by ETs with human military personnel present or being handed over. You know, I had this conversation with Joe Montaldo, and he said, you know, half of my cases are people who were abducted by ETs and then handed over to the military, and that's getting a lot of that. So handed over by the ETs to military personnel. Abductions by human militaries. This is where you're taken by human military, but there are ETs present. And then there's abductions by human military only without any ETs present, fully military, no ETs. There's mind control procedures with intimidation, fear inducement, hypnosis and drugs, in-depth interrogation and debriefing procedures, being roughed up or physically abused, medical and genetic procedures, exploratory surgery, removal of possible alien fetuses. I'm aware of 3 or 4 cases with this. You hear about this in abduction research, that people feel they may have an alien fetus that then is removed by the ETs. Well, I've got about 4 cases of this that I'm aware of, and I'm sure there's more, but these are just the ones I've heard of, where they feel that the military took them and removed a possible hybrid fetus. Implants being removed or inserted by humans, testing and demonstration of psychic and paranormal abilities, and involvement by intelligence insiders in the personal life of the abductee. So here we go. Here's just some quick photos. I'm not going to read the text a lot on the screen. Again, you can look at the little book if you want to read these. But there's experiences of harassment and surveillance, obviously black helicopter, being watched, being followed. These are two different cases of someone being harassed by a black van, two different abductees. Black helicopter harassment, being watched, being followed by a black car, having your photo taken. This is an abduction from someone's backyard. These are all typical. I love this from Kim Carlsberg from her book. And here she's being taken by two guys in suits in the back of a black sedan. You can be taken to an underground base. These are just typical examples of underground base. This is from actually one of my experiences of being taken on an elevator underground. You can see military personnel in that installation. I know this will be hard to see, but this is actually someone's depiction of a base that was partially above ground, partially underground, and that there are humans and ETs present and ET ships. You can see humans and, human military and ETs together. You may see advanced technology and believe it's ours, that we've reverse engineered. You may see technology and be told it's theirs, in other words, it's ET. You can have in-depth interrogations, mind control procedures with hypnosis and drugging. This is a depiction of someone's needle situation being drugged. More mind control. This is someone's depiction of what they call brain mapping, but more procedures along that lines. And this is, again, from one of my experiences, medical and genetic procedures. I had a medical procedure in a hazmat clean room environment. And you can see medical and genetic experiments. This is an abductee's accounts of seeing what they thought were clones. And you can have mental testing and development of psi, which is paranormal functioning, paranormal abilities. And here somebody, in this depiction, obviously somebody is hooked up to a reptilian doing something mentally. What are my experiences? Real quick, my own experience is what started me investigating this. I want to clarify for everyone, I'm not a hypnotherapist. In fact, I'm not any kind of therapist at all, other than the therapy, I guess, that comes from people being able to have a shoulder to cry on, which sometimes is worth a lot. But I am an experiencer, an ET abduction experiencer, lifelong. I am a covert-ops experiencer. I started investigating my own cases and met other people with cases, and they shared them with me, and then I started asking around, started interviewing researchers. I got into being public with my own abduction experiences 20 years ago and started doing this research 18 years ago, and now the community kind of says, it's her. So here I am. Okay, what are my experiences? I have the basic, standard, and normal ET abduction experiences and military. I have harassment and surveillance. I've had helicopter incidents, phone incidents, threats, and an influence to harm myself. I'll get more into that. Military re-abductions. In 1990, I had two roommates witness military men shouting orders at me in my room at night. I have no memory of this, but I have two roommates that are adamant it happened. July 27, 1990, missing time while driving with two friends, taken with ETs, but a man in naval uniform was present monitoring the procedures. July 93, gynecological medical procedures performed in the hazmat environment. November 93, I was flown on a human-built triangular ship. There was a miscommunication screw-up, drugs administered, and I was interrogated extensively about ET technology. In the 90s, I experienced with a friend while traveling in Sedona, Arizona, our car was stopped by the military and I was escorted away. In the 1990s, I had an interrogation and was threatened with a gun put to my head in a military tent on a military base somewhere in the California desert. And August 20th, 2000, I was abducted with a friend out of her apartment, taken to an underground base. Both of us were interrogated, threatened, and we saw a reptilian with the military, and I have a lot of photo evidence of the break into the home when that occurred. Now real quick, just as some basic ET stuff, this is me and the two friends who, and I have this story written up, so if you're interested in this, I'm selling it for only $1 for the copying, and I wrote up this story of myself and two male friends who were abducted together. Straight ET experience for the most part. So anyways, there's that. And this is us on board. That's me from the back and the two gentlemen. And then I've seen ET technology and in my abductions, and I've been interrogated about that. This is my rough drawing, and aviation artist Mark McCandlish did a redrawing for me. This is my drawing of being on an elevator.